Hey, it's Aaron. Today I'm with the 2021 Volkswagen ID.4. This is Volkswagen's first ground-up electric vehicle, meaning it's the first vehicle they've made that was designed from the beginning to be an electric vehicle. So this battery electric has about 250 miles of range, and it's really well done. I have a couple of problems with it, but otherwise it's a great vehicle. Let's check it out. A couple of things before we get into the design. Let's talk about the kind of details of the vehicle. The ID.4 is a little bit smaller than Volkswagen's Tiguan, but despite that, it's actually the same size on the inside. It has the same amount of passenger room. So pretty amazing feat. A lot of that is thanks to it being electric. Because it's electric, it doesn't need to have all that stuff underneath it to run the wheels and other things. So nicely done there. You can see probably from that perspective, when we do this, when we look at it from the side, you'll definitely see it. The hood is much shorter than the Tiguan. And that's because the electrics are smaller, and that allows the cabin to move forward. This has a wheelbase that's only 1 inch shorter than that Tiguan. So that hopefully gives you kind of an idea of the size. Lengthwise and widthwise, it is much smaller than the Tiguan by comparison. So Volkswagen is calling this an SUV, and there is an all-wheel drive option. I think I said before it's 250 miles of range. It's a little more, a little less, depending on how you drive and what exactly you get with the car. The front-wheel drive version has much more range than does the all-wheel drive option. This one in particular, when I charge it to full, it says 248 miles. Now, you have to go by the computer. The computer is averaging drivers. I'm not the only one who's driven this car since the computer was reset. So that by itself is not an indicator of how much actual range you have. You could have a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on where and how you drive. Now, when I did reset the computer, I did it so that I could do a full highway run in this. What I did was I topped it off. I have a 50 amp, 240 volt 50 amp charger in my garage. This will take the 4 full 40 amps that will give it, which is cool because it reduces charge time a lot. I haven't had it totally empty, so I can't tell you what from empty to full is, but I can tell you that below half, when I was down to about 40%, I was able to charge this all the way up to full in about 6 hours. So that's pretty good. That's the slower end of the charging cycle, and that's pretty good that it did it that fast. Full charge in this would probably take around 11 hours. So on my highway run, let's look at that first. What I did was I did the usual highway loop I do in any car, and so it's about 41.5 miles of total drive. It's there and back on the same freeway, so elevation changes and stuff are canceled out. And I topped it off, I left, I drove that, I came back, and I topped it off again, and I did the math. So on that drive, I'll show you a couple of screen captures, a couple of photos I took of the instrument cluster. The first one here, this is when I left, so this is what state it was in when I left before I plugged it in to get the full charge. So this is the state it was in before I topped it off. Then I took off on the highway. I drove halfway point, then I drove all the way back, and there's the third picture. That's the mileage that was left at the end. So you can see by the mileage estimation the car gives what it was saying in that 40-odd miles of drive. Now, going the next way, then we look at what I actually used. So I'm going to throw some numbers up on the screen. These are this is the actual charge capture. I haven't actually done it at this point. I haven't pulled up that data from my charger, because, yeah, production values. I've totally spaced it before I came here to start filming. Sorry. All right, so there's that. Now, let's talk about everyday living. Let's go around and look at the design of the vehicle, and then we'll talk about the inside and the cargo space. So from the side here, you can see the profile of the ID.4. You can see those beautiful wheels. Those are really cool. I think they're cool. Some people don't like them. They are very, very aerodynamic as well. You can see they come out to the edge of the tire so that the wind just slides across them. The front ones are a little more aggressive looking than the rear ones for some reason. I think it's just visual. But anyway, and then you see the profile of the car. It's very kind of station wagon looking. So a little more wagon than there is SUV going on in terms of design, but you see that heavy cut and the very, very pronounced wheel wells. So once I step into the picture, then you'll see a little more perspective on size for this car. So you can see it has a very low overhang. There's very little of it. It's pretty flat in front. There's no real grille. You would have seen that before. It's pretty flat up here, and you can see that it's accentuated here as far as the fender goes. The line that's here, which actually goes all the way across, it's kind of a boat prow thing, goes all the way around that way, softens in the front, but continues all the way around and is mirrored by the hood here, runs along, goes underneath this mirror, and then becomes a very thin belt line across here. It's about a finger's width, and goes all the way down and stops right about here. It just fades out. And then this line comes off the fender and runs along, goes above these door handles and goes all the way back and creates this little cliff right above the rear tail lamps. So you can see that's kind of basically the lines of the vehicle. There isn't a whole lot else going on. There's some bone lines in here to create this curvature right here. And then you can see these heavy wheel wells come around. And then this is where they get the crossover SUV thing is in the design. So you can see how thick that is on the bottom and across there. Now, it's hard to notice. It's probably really hard to see on camera. There's a little lip right here. That little lip distorts the airflow coming off and moves it outward. That has several implications. The first one being that it disturbs the rear suction that's normally created by a vehicle as it moves down the road. It also deflects some of what's coming off the tires so they're not hitting directly at whoever's behind. It's a pretty cool little design, and you see the roof line slopes. So that's where I get it's more wagon than it is crossover, so more wagon than SUV. You see that look there. And the pillar sinks in here instead of attaching, which is kind of an interesting design piece. I don't know why they did that, but it does look kind of cool. And it creates the idea that this is separate from this. And so this must be one cage. So pretty cool setup. Let's look at the working end in the back and then on the interior. So here's the first thing I want to point out. First off, you notice it's a very crossover SUV-like rear end. Comes around like this. The lighting actually stops here, but there are lights that run across here for the nighttime lights. And then the first thing I really wanted to point out is this does not open it. Normal Volkswagens, you tilt this and it opens it up. This is more conventional. You actually reach underneath and find a button. That's weird. But anyway, then you can see the cargo area. So cargo area is actually pretty substantial. It goes back pretty far and it's fairly high. Those seats fold down. They're easy. You just grab this button here and push and the seat's down, but there is a lip. It's not flat. That's important to note. So when you put something in, it can't load flat. It's going to have to go up that lip. That lip carries all the way across. But I got huge boxes in here that I just took to go recycling, and because electric vehicle recycling kind of seems like appropriate. Anyway, and I got huge amounts of boxes in here, which is great. So that's kind of the working end. Let's go look at the interior. Just really quick before we get in the car, I want to show you these cool door handles. So you reach under here, the door handle looks like it would lift out, but it doesn't. There's a little button right here. You can just feel it, and it allows you to open the door. Pretty cool. So inside the ID.4, it's a very austere interior. It's very kind of simple and plain. The plastics are pretty good. They're not harsh. They're not hard. They're pretty soft plastics. And it has a cool kind of a design as far as the bling factor, the brushed aluminum and stuff. I'll show you photos. But really, as far as buttons and switches and other things, this is almost empty. There's almost nothing here. On the left side, you have your headlights, and then weirdly enough, your defrost buttons over here. And then over here, the only buttons are on the bottom of the infotainment screen. You have a couple of buttons for climate control, you have your volume, and then you have some menu and car assist and other things. And that's it. There's no other buttons in this car. Shifting is done up here. You twist this knob back and forth, and then you have your usual dongles. The stuff on the steering wheel lights up when it turns on. It's otherwise blank and black. So weird interior, but lots of nice little touches, some brilliant things that went on in here. You have drink holders here, and then you have this that slides back. You have this cool storage cubby under here. You have a wireless charging spot for your phone. You have storage in the sides, in the doors, in the back. You have storage in the doors, in the back of the seats, but oddly missing, there is no fold down in the center of the outboard seating positions. There's no center seat fold down to give you like extra cup holders or anything, which kind of seems like a big missing component. But other than that, that's the interior, which is very comfortable and very well done. It just takes some getting used to because it's also odd. Let's look at the back seat. So in the back of the car, this back seat, that seat is set for me at 6'3", and you can see how much knee room I have. I've got a good 3 inches left. The seats are a little low for somebody my height, but headroom is beautiful back here. I have lots of it left. I've got a good couple of inches above my head there. And the seating itself is just comfy. Comfy. I made up a new word. Anyway, it's just comfortable. It feels really good. Now, the downer is the only storage you have is this little tiny pocket here, and those in the side pockets in the doors. You do have 2 USB-Cs back here to complement the ones that are up there, and you have lots of shoulder room for 2. Now, if you put 3 in here, it is going to get cramped, but it's possible to put 3. I would also like to point out that the center seating position does not have latch for your child car seat. So if your child safety seat's being put in, it has to go on this side or that side. Those have the European style latches. So they have the little plastic covers you can open up, and the latches are right there. There's no shoving, no finagling, no trying to get the cushion out of the way to make the car seat stick in place. That's pretty cool. I really like that. I wish it would become standard in the US. So other than that, there's lots of room back here. It's a very nice interior. It is, again, very plain, and this is a cloth interior, which honestly, I think I would prefer in a vehicle like this. Cloth doesn't feel as hot and doesn't feel as cold. So for a vehicle like this, where you really want to maximize your range and minimize how much climate you're using, this is a really good choice. All right, so that's the gist of the Volkswagen ID.4. It's a very good drive, nice and smooth, feels really good. When you're using the brakes, you don't feel much of a difference. You have to really search to find where it breaks from the regenerative all the way to physical braking. You really have to feel for that. It's very, very smooth. So on every front, this is a really good car. A couple of caveats: I'm really not a big fan of the extremely austere iPhone style interior, and I know a lot of the electric cars, they like to do that. They like to try to make it look all futuristic, and I think that's dumb. I think they should feel like every other car on the road. Also, this makes really cool kind of space age sounds when you're driving at lower speeds, and I had a comment on that from a police officer when I pulled into the school drop-off to drop my son off, and the police officer there, the resource officer they have, he said I'll never get used to that, to hearing that. It's pretty cool, but very smooth to drive, very simple. This is a great color. This slate gray is kind of the new going thing right now. The lighting is really good, and everything about this car is efficient and just feels right. It's one of the better electric cars I've driven. So kudos to Volkswagen for that. They did a really good job here. So yeah, that's it. The wind's picking up. I might as well quit. So this has been Aaron, 2021 Volkswagen ID.4. Talk to you again soon.